You'll stay here and take care of Amanda, my mother-in-law, Diana announced, adjusting her designer scarf while examining her reflection in the hallway mirror. She needs constant care, and since you're not working, you're the obvious choice. I bit my tongue, watching as she meticulously applied another coat of red lipstick. After 2 years of marriage to her son Mark, I learned that arguing with Diana Parker was pointless. Besides, she was right about one thing. I wasn't working. Not because I didn't want to, but because they had convinced Mark that having his wife work would reflect poorly on the family's status. Of course, I replied, forcing a smile. Amanda and I will be fine. My sister-in-law, Amanda, lay in her bed upstairs, supposedly suffering from a chronic fatigue condition that left her bedridden most days. I've been taking care of her for the past 6 months, ever since Diana fired the last nurse for asking too many questions. We'll be gone for 3 weeks, Diana continued, now fussing with her perfectly coiffed silver hair. Paris, Milan, and then a week at our villa in the south of France. Amanda's medication schedule is on the fridge, and Dr. Roberts is on speed dial if there's any change in her condition. Mark appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable as usual when his mother was giving me orders. Mom, are you sure we can't bring Sophia with us? It's our anniversary next week. Diana's eyes flashed. Mark, darling, we've discussed this. Amanda needs care, and Sophia is the only one we can trust. Besides, she added with a sharp smile, it's not as if you two can't celebrate when we return. I watched my husband's resolve crumble like it always did under his mother's gaze. 2 years ago, when we'd met at a charity gala, Mark had been different, confident, charming, independent. But back in his family home, under his mother's thumb, he became a different person entirely. Amanda's lunch needs to be pureed, Diana instructed, checking her phone. And remember, no visitors. The last thing we need is people gossiping about the family. The front door opened and Diana's husband George walked in, looking stressed as he often did these days. The car's ready, he announced, barely meeting my eyes. Diana, we need to leave now to make our flight. Something in his tone made me pause. George had always been the quieter of my in-laws, letting Diana handle family matters while he managed their considerable investment portfolio. But lately he'd seemed distracted, almost nervous. As they gathered their luggage, enough for a small army, I couldn't help but notice the tension between Diana and George. She kept shooting him warning glances, while he seemed to be avoiding eye contact with everyone. Remember, Diana said as they prepared to leave, Amanda's comfort is your primary concern. No deviation from her routine. I nodded obediently, playing the role of the dutiful daughter-in-law. Mark gave me a quick peck on the cheek, murmuring, I'm sorry, before following his parents out to the waiting town car. As soon as the car disappeared down the long driveway, I headed upstairs to check on Amanda. The mansion felt eerily quiet, as it often did when it was just the two of us. I pushed open the door to her room, expecting to find her asleep as usual. Instead, Amanda was sitting up in bed, her face alert and focused on her laptop screen. They gone? She asked, not looking up from whatever she was reading. I stood frozen in the doorway, shocked to see her not only awake but actively engaged with technology she supposedly couldn't handle due to her sensitivity to screens. Yes, they just left, I managed to say. Amanda closed her laptop with a decisive snap and threw back her covers. To my complete astonishment, she stood up and stretched, looking nothing like the invalid I'd been caring for. Thank God, she said, walking over to her window and drawing back the curtains. I was getting tired of pretending to be sick, but we had to wait until they left the country. My mind was spinning. Wait? What? You're not sick. Amanda turned to me, her expression serious. No, I'm not sick. I never was. But I needed them to think I was while I gathered evidence. She walked over to her closet and pulled out a thick folder. Evidence that my dear mother has been stealing my inheritance, $8 million worth. I sank into the armchair by her bed, trying to process this revelation. But the medications, the doctor's visits, all part of the plan, Amanda explained, sitting cross-legged on her bed, something I'd been told she was physically incapable of doing. Dr. Roberts is actually investigating medical fraud. He's been helping me document everything. Everything? I repeated weakly. Mother's theft, her manipulation, the fake medical records, all of it. Amanda's eyes met mine. And now that they're out of the country, we can finally act. But I need your help, Sophia. You've seen how they operate, how they control everything and everyone. Are you willing to help me expose the truth? I thought about the past 2 years, the constant belittling, the isolation, watching my husband slowly lose his backbone under his mother's influence. I thought about Diana's smug smile as she left for Paris without me, about all the times she treated me like a servant rather than family. What exactly do you need me to do? I asked. Amanda smiled, and for the first time, I saw a flash of the strong, capable woman who had been hiding behind the invalid facade. First, we need to access Mother's private office. I know she's been falsifying documents and the proof is in there. Then we need to contact the family lawyer, the real one, not the puppet she keeps on payroll. And Mark. I couldn't help asking. What about your brother? Amanda's expression softened. Mark's a victim in this too, Sophia. Mother's been controlling him his entire life. Helping me expose her lies might be the only way to set him free. I stood up, my decision made. If there was a chance to break Diana's hold over my husband and help Amanda reclaim what was rightfully hers, I had to take it. When do we start? I asked. Amanda grinned, already pulling out her phone. Right now, we have exactly 3 weeks until they return, and trust me, they're going to come home to some very big surprises. The next morning, I found Amanda in the kitchen making coffee, something she hadn't been able to do for over a year. She looked different now, more alive, dressed in fitted jeans and a crisp white shirt instead of her usual invalid's nightgown. Ready to start? She asked, sliding a mug across the counter to me. Mother's office won't unlock itself. Diana's private office had always been strictly off limits. Even Mark wasn't allowed inside without her present. But Amanda, it turned out, had been planning this moment for months. Last week, I copied her key while she was in the shower. Amanda explained, pulling a brass key from her pocket. She never takes it off, except then. It's her one vulnerability. The office was exactly what you'd expect from Diana Parker. Immaculate, expensive, and designed to intimidate. Heavy mahogany furniture, leather-bound books, and a massive portrait of herself dominated the space. Check the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet, Amanda instructed. Mother keeps her most important documents there. I knelt down and inserted the key. Inside, we found folders labeled with dates going back 5 years. As we spread them across the desk, a pattern emerged, one that made my stomach turn. Look at this, Amanda said, pointing to a series of bank transfers. Every month, money from my trust fund gets moved to an account in the Cayman Islands. Mother claimed it was for my medical expenses, but you're not actually sick, I finished, the pieces clicking into place. Exactly. She's been stealing my inheritance piece by piece, using my fake illness as cover. Amanda's hands trembled slightly as she showed me more documents. And that's not all. Look at these medical bills, all falsified. Dr. Roberts has been helping me track them. We spent hours combing through the evidence. Diana hadn't just been stealing Amanda's inheritance. She'd been systematically draining the entire family trust, using a network of fake companies and inflated medical expenses. What about your father? I asked. Does he know? Amanda's expression darkened. He found out recently. That's why he's been acting so strange. Mother threatened to expose his past gambling debts if he didn't help her cover it up. Suddenly, George's nervous behavior made perfect sense. A text message lit up Amanda's phone from Dr. Roberts. Perfect timing, she said, reading it. He's got the full audit ready. Now we just need to get the real family lawyer involved. But before we could discuss next steps, we heard a car pulling out the driveway. Through the office window, we saw a familiar Mercedes. It's Mark, I gasped. What's he doing back? Amanda quickly gathered the documents. Mother must have sent him to check on us. Quick, help me get back to my room. We barely made it upstairs before Mark entered the house. I found him in the kitchen, looking troubled. Mom asked me to come check on things, he said, not quite meeting my highs. She was worried about Amanda. I felt a surge of anger at Diana's manipulation, sending her son to spy on us. Amanda's resting, I said carefully. Everything's fine. Mark nodded, then hesitated. Sophia, I'm sorry about the trip. I wanted you to come, but Mom always gets her way. I finished softly. It's not that simple, he started, but I cut him off. Actually, Mark, it is that simple. Your mother has been controlling everything. Our marriage, our lives, your sister's future. What do you mean, my sister's future? Mark? Amanda's voice came from the doorway. She was back in her nightgown, playing her role perfectly. Is that you? He rushed to help her to a chair, ever the concerned brother. Should you be up? Mom said. Mom says a lot of things, Amanda interrupted. But how much of it is true? Over the next hour, we showed Mark selected pieces of evidence, enough to open his eyes without overwhelming him. The fake medical bills, the trust fund transfers, the threatening letters to their father. I don't believe it, he kept saying, but I could see the truth dawning in his eyes. Years of manipulation were finally becoming clear. Why do you think she never lets me work? I asked gently, or why she insisted we live in her guest house instead of getting our own place. She needs to control everything, Mark. And everyone, Amanda added. She's been stealing my inheritance because she knows that once I have financial independence, she loses her power over me. Mark sat silently for a long moment, then pulled out his phone. I need to call her. No, Amanda and I said simultaneously. If she knows we're onto her, Amanda explained, she'll destroy the evidence before we can act. We have 3 weeks while they're in Europe. That's our window to set things right. Mark looked between us, years of conditioning warring with the truth right in front of him. Finally, he took a deep breath. What do you need me to do? Amanda smiled. First, we need you to go back to Paris. Act normal. Let them think everything's fine here. Meanwhile, Sophia and I have some appointments to keep. With who? The family lawyer, the bank trustees, and a very interesting person from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Amanda said. It's time to show our dear mother that her perfect plan isn't so perfect after all. As I watched Mark drive away that evening, I felt a mix of hope and anxiety. We were committed now, no turning back. Diana Parker was about to learn that the quiet daughter-in-law and the sick daughter she underestimated were capable of far more than she ever imagined. Amanda appeared beside me at the window. 2 weeks and 5 days until they return, she said softly. Ready for phase 2? I nodded, thinking of all the times Diana had belittled me, controlled Mark, and exploited her own daughter. More than ready. 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of meetings, legal depositions, and careful preparation. On the day of Diana's return, Amanda and I waited in the living room, every detail in place. The plane landed. Mark texted. Heading home now. Amanda squeezed my hand. Gone was any trace of the invalid. She sat straight-backed in a tailored suit, looking every bit the confident heiress she truly was. I heard cars pulling up outside. Ready? She asked. Ready. The front door opened and Diana swept in, still wearing her Parisian designer outfit. She stopped short at the sight of Amanda sitting upright on the couch. Amanda. What are you doing out of bed? Sophia. How could you be so careless with her health? Hello, Mother, Amanda said calmly. We need to talk about my inheritance. Diana's face went white, but she recovered quickly. Darling, you're clearly not well. Let's get you back to bed. And then. Actually, Mrs. Parker, a new voice interrupted. Your daughter is perfectly healthy, as I've been documenting for the past year. Dr. Roberts stepped out from the study, followed by a man in a dark suit who flashed an FBI badge. What is the meaning of this? Diana demanded, her voice rising. George, do something. But George stepped away from his wife, looking years older, but somehow relieved. No, Diana. It's over. I can't help you hide it anymore. Hide what? She snapped, though her perfectly manicured hands were shaking. Amanda stood, pulling out a thick folder. The fraud, the theft, all of it, $8 million, Mother. That's how much you stole from my trust fund using fake medical bills and offshore accounts. Don't be ridiculous, Diana laughed, but it sounded hollow. Mark, tell them how absurd this is. Mark moved to stand beside me. I've seen the evidence, Mom. All of it. How could you do this to your own daughter? Everything I did was for this family. Diana's composure cracked. To maintain our position, our status. Mrs. Parker, the FBI agent cut in. We have a warrant to seize your financial records and electronic devices. I suggest you cooperate fully. What followed was like watching a carefully constructed house of cards collapse. As Diana was read her rights, she kept insisting she'd done nothing wrong. But the evidence was overwhelming. The fake medical bills. The forged documents, the offshore accounts, even Diana Parker couldn't talk her way out of this one. The money will be returned to the trust fund, the family lawyer explained later that evening. And given the circumstances, Amanda will have full control over her inheritance, effective immediately. Amanda nodded, then turned to her father. Dad, about your gambling debts. George looked down, ashamed, but Amanda continued softly, I'm paying them off. All of them. You don't have to be under her control anymore either. Tears formed in his eyes. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, for everything. As the legal team wrapped up their work, Mark pulled me aside. I've been blind, he said quietly, to what she was doing to all of us. Can you forgive me? I took his hand. There's nothing to forgive. She manipulated everyone. What matters is what we do now. 2 months later, we stood in front of our new home, a beautiful house that Mark and I had chosen together, without any input from his mother. Diana was under house arrest pending her trial, her reputation in ruins. Amanda had blossomed, taking control of her share of the family investments and starting a foundation to help victims of financial abuse. The sick daughter had become a powerful advocate for others. The guest room is ready for movie night, she called from the front door. Our weekly family gatherings had become a new tradition, one based on love and honesty instead of manipulation and lies. As I watched Mark and his sister laugh together on our porch, I thought about how much had changed. Diana had spent years building a cage for all of us, never realizing she was actually building the evidence of her own downfall. George joined us more often now, slowly healing from decades of emotional abuse. He was learning to be the father his children needed, rather than the puppet his wife had demanded. You know what's funny? Amanda said one evening, curled up on our couch. Mother always said I was too sick to handle stress. But in the end, she was the one who couldn't handle the truth. I smiled, thinking of Diana's face when her perfect facade finally cracked. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. And we were finally completely free.